Good morning and welcome to BBOC Live, presented by DraftKings. This is the college football playoff quarterfinals betting preview. It's 10:30 a.m. Eastern. I'm Stuckey, joining me as always, my fellow BBOC co-hosts, Colin Wilson, Mike Calabrese, and the one and only Josh Nunn, aka Duck. We will get to all four college football playoff quarterfinals today. Put a parlay together at the end. By the way, if you want to follow any of our bets, we will be dropping quick slip links in the YouTube chat. You can use those to quickly and easily add any that you want to follow to your bet slip. Also, make sure you check out at Playbook on Twitter, the new action bot. Super easy to automate your bet slips and save you some time. Colin, I see you're not in your normal location. Where are you coming from?
Yeah, there's a beach behind me, so I'm definitely not in Arkansas. I am in Marina Del Rey, about 20 minutes outside of Pasadena, getting ready to take my sons to Cosm to see the playoff game tonight and tomorrow. Going to the Rose Bowl, which is expecting tornado weather. I mean, like, come on, you're telling a guy that lives in Tornado Valley, who lived in Oklahoma for 17 years, there's going to be tornado weather and flash floods, and it's going to be potentially the most historic Rose Bowl ever just because of the weather.
Yeah, well, it's not it might not be pretty. I can't wait for that game. What's your plans for the game tonight? Where are you watching?
Oh, yeah, we're going to Cosm. If you guys haven't heard of it, COSM. Cosm only exists in LA and in Dallas, and it looks like the Sphere in Las Vegas. I essentially sit in a dome. They set a camera on the sidelines of Ohio State, Texas, Ohio State, and Miami, and it looks like you're actually on the sidelines of the game, except you're like in a movie theater seat. So if you haven't checked out what Cosm is, I would highly suggest like find an event that you love, like a concert, a football game, a WWE event, whatever it is, boxing, whatever it is you like. Find Cosm and go to Dallas or LA and look at one of these things. They are amazing.
Yeah, I've been to I've never seen a show at one of them. I just saw the basic the postcards thing
Mm-hmm.
at the Sphere in Vegas, and that was super cool.
Right.
Uh, so I can't imagine what that's going to be like tonight. Before we get into all four college football playoff quarterfinal games. We had some more games yesterday. The Big Ten off to a hot start, although USC melted down late. There's something about TCU and comebacks in the Alamo Bowl. I think they've had three from double digits down in the past 10 seasons. Shout out to Ken Seals, the backup quarterback for TCU, who led that comeback. I love seeing that kind of stuff. Like like you had Hoover who opted out. Seals was very emotional, and just shows you that there are still a lot of players that do care about these games and experience. So that was super cool. There was some bad games mixed in. I mean, uh, Georgia Southern, App State, La Tech Coastal, not the prettiest games, but we have some meaningful games today, and we have one of the bowl games. I think the bowl game that I'm looking forward to the most in Iowa Vanderbilt. Duck, before we get into these games, do you have any takeaways or any thoughts on any of the non-playoff games remaining?
I do, and we had thoughts about the ones that happened yesterday. Colin and I were talking off air. It was just so fun to see, whether you had a TCU ticket or not, just to see those guys really care about pulling out that win in the Alamo Bowl last night. You had Sonny Dykes running around, jumping and hugging people. You had Seals getting on his knees, pointing to the sky. They just really wanted to be there and show up and get that win. And that was just really cool to see because bowl season has largely been missing a lot of that spirit and atmosphere. So I was excited to just get some real good, fun bowl games yesterday. I think we've got a good slate today. Vandy and Iowa is going to be a real fun game. I'm excited to see how that plays out. Now we've got another element added into Nebraska, Utah. So are the Utes going to show up now without a coach? We kind of thought this was going to be the kind of the swan song for Kyle Whittingham, and now he's not even there. So how does Utah show up? And Nebraska now with Latif sounds like he's going to go. So can they stay within the number? Can they give them a kind of a feisty game, or are they going to get steamrolled? It's just there's a lot of fun things outside of the playoff. But I'm telling you right now, guys, I'm so excited to just talk about these playoff games. We don't have to worry about motivation. We don't have to discuss opt-outs. We don't have to discuss teams and whether or not they give a shit or not. This is going to be real fun to get into these matchups today.
I'm also looking forward to Michigan, Texas with it seems like Michigan's pretty locked in under Biff. So I'm on the Wolverines today looking
It's
forward.
their only 2 wins of the season, right? Or, I'm sorry, Biff only coached 2 wins or two
Yep.
games, two
Yep.
wins. So
Biff is one of two coaches this year that's undefeated. So he has that going for him. Calabrese, any thoughts before we dive in here?
Yeah, the TCU USC losing that under last night. I was
Mm.
a bookie way back in the day in college, and whoever had the worst bad beat streak of the month, they drank for free at the end of the month on my bar tab. Shout out to Swallow at the Hollow in Baltimore, Maryland. People deserve that. If this was a real sports book, they should at least throw me a drink ticket. Obviously, the sports book apps aren't going to do the same for me, but losing that, giving up 9 points in overtime and losing it by a point and a half was brutal, particularly that last play. I know USC can't tackle, but they also had the sideline defender. I think you have to credit the sideline with a missed tackle as well on that last play. Just unbelievable. It was me and Lendell White just cursing out USC's defense on Twitter last night. Just a brutal beat. But I mean, how mad can you get when it basically was in the hands of the USC defense that hasn't been able to tackle, I mean, really since Pete Carroll left. So just another issue for them being soft, playing into that narrative of Lincoln Riley not being able to coach up defense.
There is
that's not.
something extra. It's always tilting when you lose an under in college football that goes to overtime. But there's something extra tilting when it's a bowl game because you're like, come on, are we really playing for overtime here? So that was a tough one. Then you had the ref screaming, "The game is not over. The game is not over. The game is not over." When you're like, well, yeah, it just
It's
went over
over.
by
Yeah.
that point.
Yeah,
Uh, Kyle-
you know what kept crossing my mind last night? We're gonna have to back Penn State at the beginning of next year because Danton Lynn is there. Like I'm such a pro Danton Lynn guy. Now I have to back Penn State like an eighth year in a row to actually do something. That's gonna be rough. But you see the difference in the USC defense without him.
Colin Ardley backing Penn State in 2026. All right, let's get to the college football playoff quarterfinal games. We'll start tonight with the Cotton Bowl between Miami and Ohio State. Ohio State, 9.5 point favorite. Colin, kick things off. What
Yeah,
will you be rooting for tonight?
yeah. My projection of Miami +5 got tweeted out before lines came out, and I got thrown under the bus by the Twitter crowd, especially the Ohio State people that love me so much. And I'm sticking by it. I took Miami +10.5. I would take them in 9. I would take them all the way down to 7. I'd take them sub 7. The one handicap in this game is got to be the Miami defensive line going up against this Ohio State offensive line that's ranked 31st in PFF in pass blocking. Specifically, it's not even Ruben Bain because he's going up against probably one of the best left tackles in the nation. It's really the other side, where right edge Akeem Mesidor is going to go up against Philip Daniels. And the reason why I've targeted this side is because Phil Daniels is outside the top 100 of all individual tackles when it comes to pass blocking. That's a real problem against Mesidor. And I believe Sayan is going to have pressure on him the entire game. Now, I could say whatever I want about Colin Klein and Texas A&M and that offense sputtering down the stretch. I really couldn't find an identity. But, hey, let's give Miami some credit about what they were able to do to that offense and to keep them at bay the entire game. I think the same thing happens here. I have not been impressed enough with the Ohio State offensive line to say that this Miami defensive line is not going to take control of this game from the start. So Miami and the points, and I think they give them a scare. I don't know if they can beat them because Miami's offense is horrific, but they're going to give them a scare.
Yeah, I mean, my biggest concern in this game. I do think that I think you might see some rotations on the right side of the offensive line. But I do think that that's the weak point of this Ohio State offense, and they're certainly not as potent of a rushing attack as they were last year. Obviously, when you lose Judkins and Henderson, so there's going to be some known passing downs here against this Miami defense. And can Messidor, Bain, and company get home and cause some negative plays, some sacks, and kill drives? That's definitely going to be a matchup to watch. You're sticking with your guns. I respect it. Calabrese, what are you looking at here?
I like the first quarter under 9.5, and it's really because I love both of these defenses, and we get a bump from the preferred pace. Ohio State famously this year dead last in pace, even behind Army. Miami barely faster, 129th in seconds between plays. And in the last 6 games, the Canes have given up a grand total of 3 points in the first quarter. In terms of, the importance we give to scripted plays, I think it's just as important in terms of what these DCs are cooking up, what they've seen on film, how they're going to disguise coverages, because we know Ohio State is elite in terms of confusing quarterbacks and disguising what they're doing at the line of scrimmage with sim pressures and bringing pressure from different angles. So all of this kind of boils down to will it be touchdowns or will it be field goals if any of these teams get inside the opponent's 40-yard line? And really, when you look at Ohio State, historically good red zone defense this year, one of the lowest score rates in the past 5 years in college football, and only 33% of opponent red zone trips have ended in the end zone. Miami also struggling at kicker. Carter Davis went 1 for 4, almost cost them that game in College Station. And the last piece of it is when you put together the first quarter defensive performances from the entire season, these two teams add up to less than 4 points per first quarter. So I'm going to go under 9.5. It was at even money. It's now about minus 115 in the market. That's fine. I'm going to fire away on it.
Duck, you're kind of on the same page. You're looking at the first half under.
Yeah, and this could be one where the entire thing trends under the entire way. Two real slow-paced offenses that are going to operate at 128th and 136th nationally in tempo. Ohio State is dead last in the country in operating tempo. And I would assume that both of these groups want to try to establish the run early here. I think we saw the path really for Miami in their last game against Texas A&M. They lined up and ran 42 total offensive plays, just did not have a lot of interest in throwing the ball around with Carson Beck against A&M, and I can't imagine that they're going to want to do that here. I think the defensive lines are going to control the terms really on both sides here in this one. And then also the Buckeyes have been off a month, and there could just be a little bit of trying to get back into the rhythm of you can't really simulate the speed of the game reps. So, I mean, you've been off a month. It's going to take a little while to kind of get your feet wet. The last thing I'll say, though, you look at both of these defenses, they've been elite in the first half since Miami's loss to Louisville, and they've played 7 games since that point. They've allowed a total of 17 first half points the rest of the way since that point. And Ohio State, they've allowed one team all season to score 10 points or more in the first half. So slow burning grinder, a real heavyweight bout of haymakers that are really thrown by the defensive lines here. But I think both of these offenses are going to struggle early. Even with it ticking to 20.5, I think we're still good.
Yeah, I would lean all of your guys' way, but I'm like fairly close to market, but I do think it'll be a lower scoring game where the points are a little bit more valuable with the dog. But I'm going to target some Max Clare props. I think that Ohio State's going to struggle to run the ball. They're going to be under some pressure when they have to throw the ball. They're going to play, and I believe Miami's going to play a lot of too high, take away the explosive plays, take away Ohio State's elite receivers. That's going to be their objective. So I think there's going to be you're going to have to get rid of the ball quick in on some downs. You're going to have to throw over the middle of the field on some downs, and I think Claire is going to take advantage. And there's been some talk that Ohio State is going to kind of reduce some of the multiple tight end sets that they have been using. I think that just might lead to more looks for Claire. I am curious to see, there is this misconception out there that Ohio State went extremely slow all last year and then got into the college football playoff and then started to just go super fast. That's not true. They were still slow in the college football playoff. They were just turned into a machine in their offense. Of efficiency went way up. But really looking forward to this one. Can't wait. Ohio State and Miami. Before we move on to Oregon and Texas Tech, I'll toss it to a slightly younger version of myself for a word on our sponsor, DraftKings. The Big Bets on Campus podcast has teamed up with DraftKings Sportsbook, where new customers can bet $5 and get $200 back in bonus bets if your bet wins. Stay in on the action and use your bonus bets on DraftKings same game parlays for a shot at an even bigger payout. To get started, use promo code BBOC when signing up with DraftKings. Again, that's promo code BBOC when signing up and bet $5 to get 200 back in bonus bets if your bet wins. The crown is yours. All right, let's move on to tomorrow's college football playoff quarterfinal games. We'll start with Oregon, Texas Tech in the Orange Bowl. Oregon, 2.5-ish point favorite here. Colin, what do you got?
Oregon all the way here. I think there's two glaring issues for Texas Tech that is really Big 12 play hasn't been able to expose them, but I can see it in the stat sheet. When you play, listen, first off, their offensive line is outside the top 95 in stuff yards and stuff rate and line yards. And what that means is they can't control the line of scrimmage whatsoever. Against some of these Big 12 defenses, you couldn't control the line of scrimmage and run the ball, which means that Cameron Dickey and Jacoby Williams have had to create highlight yards all year. That's when all of the rushing yards directly correlate to what they've had to do in the backfield. And that's going to be a problem against this Oregon defense that has been in people's backfields all season, and they're top 5 in broken and missed tackles allowed. There's just nothing Texas Tech's going to get in space, and I expect the Ducks to get past this offensive line. The second one is the red zone touchdown scoring. Texas Tech has been horrific. There was this big push at the end of the year against subpar Big 12 play from Joey McGuire calling out his offense, and I want more touchdowns. I want more touchdowns. That's great. And then you got to the Big 12 championship game, and you had 5 red zone trips against BYU, and you only converted one of those into a touchdown. I just see Oregon using a lot of little things. There's like screens, dumps to the flats, flares, things to get around that defensive line that was so heavily paid for by Texas Tech, to go ahead and make life miserable in space against the Red Raiders, because the Red Raiders can't tackle in space nearly as well as the Ducks do. So look for Oregon by middle 8, by penalties, by special teams, and tackling. They have the edge in all of these areas, small edges, and I think it's enough for them to get the victory here and move on.
Calabrese, you're looking at the total here.
Yeah, I'm going to go under here. I mean, both these defenses refuse to give up big plays. Oregon's second in terms of big play rate allowed, Texas Tech third. And the Blur offense of yesteryear under Chip Kelly, it's completely gone. They were consistently a top 10, if not top 5 team in tempo and seconds between plays. The Ducks now 102nd in that regard. Texas Tech is going to be able to up the tempo a little bit, but as Colin just alluded to, when they stall out in the red zone, that's going to be the difference. Field goals, not touchdowns, inside the Ducks 20 is why I'm comfortable going under any number above 50. Texas Tech also has done a great job throughout the entire season in terms of their coaching staff, particularly their DC, Sheil Wood, making halftime adjustments, allowing just 6.6 points per game in the second half. They faced 3 top 25 defenses per SP+. They held those opponents to just 8 points per game. And the final piece, I know that people get excited about Dante Moore. You look into NFL mock drafts now, the guy's going in the top 10. When they played the most difficult defenses on their schedule, you look at Indiana, Iowa, Penn State. They average less than 20 points per game in those. Texas Tech has an elite defense. I see this one being more of a rock fight. Let's call it 23-17, and I'm going to go under.
Yeah, and the Penn State game had overtime scoring as well in that game. The Oregon offense did look, it was night and day between when they faced like mid to bad defenses versus elite defenses. They're definitely going to get an elite defense here. I agree with you on the under. Also, it's worth mentioning Tech, they might slow down their tempo. That's the one thing I worry about, but big game here. But it's a timing-based offense. There's been a long gap since they last played, so you could see them out of rhythm early on. And this is the best defense that Texas Tech will face all season. And how you want to move the ball in Oregon is you want to run on them a bit. And this Texas Tech rushing attack is not overly efficient. And I do think the Texas Tech defense is legit. I mean, their front 7 is national title good. I think they'll cause Oregon some issues. So I agree with you on the under. Would look at the first half under as well. Duck, you're on the same page there too.
Yeah, same page. Nasty defensive line, 39 sacks, 96 tackles for a loss this season, 2.3 yards per carry surrendered on the ground this year. Only one team all season has scored over 17 points against Texas Tech. Just a real still nationally underrated defensive unit, I believe. And I think Oregon's defensive unit will also be able to step up, and defensive line will really get after Texas Tech's offensive line in this one. You look even back to their game against Indiana that they lost. IU still just had 3 explosive plays in that game against Oregon. Oregon's defense showed up and played not as bad as you might think, given that they lost that game by 10 points at home. But the real driver for me is red zone. Texas Tech's red zone defense has been elite this season, allowing just 13 red zone touchdowns all year. But their red zone offense has really struggled. Think about this, guys. 32 times this year, Texas Tech moved the ball into the red zone on offense and did not score a touchdown. They settled for 23 red zone field goals, and they were turned away empty 9 times. Just could be a little bit of a troubling spot here for these guys when the field gets condensed down. Oregon's red zone defense has been good this year. I think Texas Tech might have to settle for field goals in this one, which will just matriculate this one to trending under the posted total.
Yep. Field goals, prevent explosive plays, slower start. That would lead to an under here. Plus, it's worth mentioning Morton still isn't at 100%. I think he said he's at, with his hairline fracture, I think he said he's at 80-ish%.
He actually this morning came out and said he's 100% stuck, but I mean,
well, 2 days ago,
with the hairline fracture, you're never going to be 100% until next season.
But yeah, this is also the school that had Alabama with a punctured lung for 3 years. I don't believe anything they say. Listen, there is one thing we have to mention from an injury standpoint because this just came out last night. I was surprised to see two things on the availability report that was put out late last night. One, DeCorian Moore is nowhere to be found for Oregon. Like, amazingly, after 6 weeks, he's not listed as questionable. So I think it's a good sign that he's going to get hit in the flats and he's going to be dancing in space all day to get away from that Texas Tech defensive line. But Jacob Rodriguez is listed as probable. Um, I don't know why he's on this list at all. I mean, you've been off for a month. Jacob Rodriguez being listed as probable is a little bit shocking to me. I haven't heard any steam or any smoke on this about why he's on this availability report, but it's definitely something to keep your eye on.
Yeah, I think it should be okay, but definitely worth mentioning more. That is my one concern for Texas Tech. I mean, look, if you look at the best offenses they face, they're probably Utah and BYU, borderline top 20 offenses. Oregon's obviously in a different class, but they completely shut down those two teams 3 times they played. I mean, completely suffocated them into nothing. The one thing I do worry about is just the tech, like Rodriguez and Bailey and Hunter and Height, they're all incredible up front. But the Texas Tech corners, that's like my one concern for the under and for Tech because they really haven't faced that many elite receivers, like NFL type receivers this season. So does that bite them in this game? The one you would say is Tyson, who went for 10 for 100, I think, in a win. So that's something that I'll be watching early on, but looking forward to that one. By the way, these next 2 days could be nightmare fuel for some bettors. You go to someone's house for New Year's Eve thinking to be watching Max Clare props hit, but then they're saying they don't have ESPN, and now you're watching Andy Cohen get drunk on TV. This is why you need to know about Sling TV. With Sling TV, you can take full control with flexible package options of 1, 3, and 7 day passes for access to 30 plus live channels, which includes ESPN and TNT. So that covers you for all of the college football playoff games and more. Sling TV will also be a great option for some huge upcoming NFL games as well. So no matter where you go over the next 2 days, you'll be able to watch the games because of Sling TV. So with that, let's talk Alabama and Indiana, presented by Sling TV. All right, let's go to the Rose Bowl. Colin, naturally, you should start things off. What do you got here?
Yeah, I mean, it's there's going to be a lot of rain here, but we'll put that in the handicap. The last, I like Indiana here by a lot. I don't even care if it's 7.5. This Alabama pass rush, they finished 127th in PFF this season. Then they showed up against Oklahoma, pressured Mateer 15 times. They had a season high 7 sacks by 7 different players. OU failed to have a methodical and explosive drive. I think it's a bunch of fool's gold. I think that was more on Oklahoma and their offense and their offensive line than it was anything else. This is still a very one-dimensional offense from Alabama. They are pass first, pass second, pass only because they have no rushing offense whatsoever, and that makes it just easier for Signetti to even game plan around them. And then when you go to the offensive side of the ball for Indiana, they are built for this weather that's about to come into Los Angeles. This Alabama rush defense is going to take on Roman Hemby in the zone read and Kalen Black in the man concepts. They've struggled against inside zone, just about mid FBS success level ranks. And I expect Hemby, if you're going to take props out, that would be the guy that I would go after. But more importantly, Alabama is 113th in broken tackles allowed. If Hemby can get to the second level here, this could turn into 10-yard gains every single time. And Indiana never gets knocked off schedule. They are number one in the nation in standard downs rate. But if they do get into passing downs, Mendoza's absolutely torn up cover three, which is the primary look of Kane Womack in that 3-3-5. And then, again, the Indiana defense, they're also built for this. Stephen Daly, 19 tackles for loss. I think he's second in the nation in that. Indiana is built for bad weather. Indiana is built schematically from run concepts to run all over Alabama. And Alabama's a one-trick pony, and they've been living on fumes in their gas tank for a few weeks. So I think Indiana puts them to rest here at the Rose Bowl.
By the way, this is a Twitter hot take special, this game. You see all these hot takes about the SEC, like Missouri and Tennessee. They didn't beat a single team with a winning record this year. The Big Ten is off to a hot start. The Big Ten is 6-1 against the SEC in bowl games or the college football playoff over the last 2 seasons. You're either going to have this SEC haters out or the SEC lovers out after the result of this game. Calabrese, you're on board with SIG.
Yeah, I'm laying the 7 here. And for most of the week, it was 6.5. And you have to go all the way back to 1962 to find a number one team in the country playing in a bowl game against a team ranked ninth or further back in the AP poll. And that coach, by the way, in 1962 was Bear Bryant. That was his first national championship at Alabama. That, the whole country hadn't really come to grips with the fact that Alabama was a juggernaut again and he was a legendary coach. I think we're going to look back on this one and say, we were discounting Indiana just because of the laundry. We were looking at Signetti and still saying, oh, you have to prove it a bit more before we automatically consider you an absolute team to back every single time in a big game. But everything here, at least to me, contingent on the weather being as bad as it's supposed to be. Indiana is prepared to play either through the air or on the ground. They're first in rushing success, second in passing success with a Heisman Trophy winning quarterback. And their defense just held Ohio State 27 points below their scoring average. They are incredibly havoc minded. They get in quarterbacks' faces. Their secondary is really disruptive. Pick a defensive stat, they're likely in the top 10. And that's bad news. Everything that Colin was saying about Alabama being one dimensional, it's true. They were just a conveyor belt of NFL ready running backs all the way back to Mark Ingram through Derrick Henry, just game breakers, Josh Jacobs. Now they're 110th in rushing explosives this year, and that's even with getting Jam Miller back in the last game. He wasn't a difference maker. What that's going to mean in this one, all the pressure is going to slide to Ty Simpson, who has been under fire. These last 3 games. He's taken 10 sacks, but critically 41% of his dropbacks, he has faced pressure in the pocket. I think Indiana is going to make him uncomfortable. He's going to turn the ball over a few times, and Indiana is going to run away with this one in a monsoon in Pasadena.
Yeah, I would agree with Indiana. I mean, I think there's one of these teams can rush the passer and one of these teams can run the ball. And it's Indiana in both cases. Having a completely one-dimensional offense against this Indiana defense and just against any of these teams in the college football playoff, it's just not sustainable. Also, Alabama special teams, major issues. I like the Indiana offensive line better in terms of pass protection. So yeah, I think Indiana is a tad undervalued per my numbers. I think they get it done. This Alabama team has been fool's gold all year, in my opinion. I mean, they should have lost to South Carolina. You get a fluky tip pick. You get every bounce against Auburn in a game where you were outplayed. Last week, you're down 17-0, and get the pick six, and Oklahoma's special teams turn into dust somehow. So I think Indiana and Sig get it done. You just give this elite staff extra time to prepare for a one-dimensional offense. I think there's going to be a couple turnovers, and that'll do it. Duck, you're going to make it 4 for 4.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to just measure the inconsistent performances from Alabama this year. A couple top 10 wins, but then you've got such a puzzling loss against Florida State, the struggles with Auburn, getting blown out in the SEC title game, just a bad look. First half against Oklahoma, it looked like they were going to get run out of the place before a little bit of luck factor came into it. But just feels like you're paying some sort of a tax here to bet Alabama. And you're getting the 7 and people think maybe it's the pedigree or because it's the Tide or there's no way IU can be that much better than these guys. But you look at Indiana at all 3 levels of the defense, really buttoned up. They don't make mistakes. They're not caught out of position. And in this game in the third quarter, when you really need a first down, who's going to be able to get it on the ground? Alabama has struggled so badly on the ground this season. 10 times this year, they have been held to 120 yards or less. And I just don't know that you want to line up against this ball hawking secondary and throw it around with Ty Simpson in the rain. I just don't think it's going to work. I think they're really going to struggle to put drives together. I think they're going to struggle to put points on the scoreboard. And Indiana they are so buttoned up offensively. 7 yards per play, season average, 7 yards per play is incredible. They don't get behind the sticks. They're always on schedule, second and short, third and short. Just feels like you can fade Signetti if you want to, but I do not want to do that here. It's Indiana all the way for me.
Hey, Stuck, let me ask you a question. What was the weather when Florida State embarrassed Alabama? It
Probably
was
similar.
it was wet. It was gross. It was rainy. Like, I mean, and that I think that whole broken tackles allowed being one of the bottom 20 teams comes into play. I mean, Duck mentioned the weather against Florida State. I think it happens here again.
Yeah, I will say Alabama might be a little healthier here, and I do wonder about the loss of Daly for Indiana and how that impacts things, but I think the Hoosiers get it done. So, with so many great games in the coming days, Sling TV is your solution to instant access to live TV starting as low as $4.99. There isn't a better time to acquaint yourself with 1, 3, and 7-day passes from Sling TV. The offer applies to Orange. 1 day pass. Restrictions apply. Moving on to our final game, Sugar Bowl, Ole Miss, Georgia, rematch from a game earlier this season. Pretty incredible game. Ole Miss jumped out to a big lead. Georgia came back. You know my thoughts on Georgia in this game. They just like so many big games. Their script isn't great. Ole Miss, I expect to have a pretty good script. Georgia gets behind so many times in these big games. That's what I'm hoping for. Then I'm hoping to grab Georgia live. I won't talk more about. I've talked about this ad nauseum almost every week when Georgia plays. Colin, what are you looking at here?
Yeah, we're going to take Georgia team total over. There's just no stopping this Georgia offense right now. I mean, besides the Georgia Tech game, right?
It's
It's a
tragic.
59. Yeah, it's a 59% rush ratio for Georgia. It's going to be Gunnar Stockton and Nate Frazier. They're going to run inside zone in light and heavy boxes. 11 and 12 personnel is their primary run concept, and they are over 60% success rate in running that. I mean, Georgia has been unstoppable in red zone attempts. 40 trips this year into the red zone. Only 5 of them ended up in a field goal. That is a serious problem coming in here for Ole Miss, who really defensively kind of gassed out in that first game. They had 5 touchdown drives to start the game, and then 3 just completely could not hang with Georgia. Lost 17-0 in the fourth quarter alone. I expected a lot of this to be the same. I really can't answer. I know I've had a lot of like DMs and texts and everybody saying, why is this number down to 6? Why is this number down to 6? It's either being shaped or there's an injury that we don't know about, because there's no reason in the world, from the performance and the box score, from everything else that we've seen out of this Georgia defense the last few weeks, where they haven't allowed more than 10 points, as to why this spread is 6 points. I'm not sure, but I'm going to stick on the other side of the ball, where the Georgia offense is an absolute tank in the red zone and they will cash a touchdown every single time. So Georgia over 30.5 team total points.
Kyle Reese, you like the full game over.
Yeah, the first meeting had 78 points, and really it was another indication that Stockton has shook off any of this game manager moniker. The guy is an underrated star at the college level. Look at his games against Ole Miss, Alabama, Texas, all talented defenses, 11 passing touchdowns, 2 more rushing scores as well. He's proven to be a big-time quarterback who can pick you apart from a clean pocket. But it's, damned if you do, damned if you don't, because if you blitz him, there's not a quarterback in the entire country with a higher adjusted completion percentage when facing 5 or more rushers. 86% in adjusting completions, which is just outrageous. 17 touchdowns to 1 pick in those situations as well. And yes, the Georgia defense has played out of its mind, but it did give up 35 points in 40 minutes to this Ole Miss offense the first time around, and that was with Lacey really being bottled up for the entire game. He had 12 carries for 31 yards. If he can pop a little bit, and then they fold in everything they do in the RPO game, the quick game, and Chambliss being able to improvise off script, I think there's a good opportunity for Ole Miss to get to 24, 28 points in this game. And I agree with Collins, right up on the Georgia offense. I think they're going to roll in this one. So if I get 28 points from Ole Miss, I feel great about this game going over 55 and a half, 56, 56 and a half, whatever you get that number. I think this game's played in the 60s.
Yeah, Georgia should be able to run the ball here. Maybe Colby Young, does he have an impact coming back from injury? Also, never sleep on Georgia's special teams when they're playing. For my money, the best special teams overall in the country. Duck, I know you're passing. You want to add anything?
Not much more. I don't think that Ole Miss is going to have the success that they had against Georgia in the first meeting. You now have some film on what Ole Miss wanted to do uh, after calling a game without Lane Kiffin, and Golding talked about that in his pressers about what they kind of wanted to do and didn't want to do a little bit differently than what maybe Lane Kiffin would have done with that offense. And now you've got some film on that for Georgia. Just think Georgia will be really prepared in the second meeting for what they saw in the first meeting. I think Georgia wins this game handily.
All right, let's move on to our final segment, our DraftKings favorite picks parlay, our favorite picks from the 4 college football quarterfinal games. Just name your bet, couple words. Colin?
Oh, let's go with Miami plus 9.5. The defensive line is going to get this home. Just need a little bit of life out of that offense, and Carson Beck, and we'll be fine.
Calabrese?
Under 51 and a half, Oregon, Texas Tech. No explosives. That's all I'm praying for. You can march the ball down the field, but as long as there's not those one play touchdowns from 60 plus yards, we're going to go under 51 and a half.
Duck?
First half under Miami and Ohio State. Slow pace, minimal explosivity, red zone field goals.
And I'll just throw in Indiana money line. In Sig we trust. The team that can run the ball and get after the passer. That pays Miami plus 9.5, Oregon, Texas Tech under, Miami, Ohio State first half under, Indiana money line pays about 7-1 at DraftKings. Happy New Year to everyone. Stay safe tonight. Don't drink and drive. If you have to drive on the roads and you're sober, be extra cautious. Just bring in the new year with some winners and stay safe. I want to thank Duck, Colin, and Mike for joining me all year. Our producers on the back end are incredible as always. Most importantly, thanks to all of you for tuning in. Happy New Year to all of you. Check out Big Bets on Campus wherever you listen to podcasts. We'll have part 6, I believe, of our college football bowl betting preview, which will cover the semifinals. We already have parts 4 and 5 out there to cover all the games this week, so make sure you check that out if you haven't. Good luck on all of your wagers today. Happy New Year. We'll catch y'all later. Cheers.